Hey, everybody. We'll give folks a little bit more time to join. And while you're waiting, if you could fill out the survey with the QR code, it's pretty short, but just trying to get an idea for our meeting structure in 2026. So I kind of explained what our meeting structure has been this past year. And then building off of that, do we want to keep it the same, change it, and tweak anything? So I put together a little bit of a survey to try to capture it. All right, it looks like the joining has slowed down, so we'll go ahead and get started. If you just joined, we have a survey on the screen right now. We're trying to just get an idea of how we want to structure things in 2026. So if you could just scan that QR code and fill out the survey. If you loved everything we did in 2025, it'll be really simple because it's just one question, or it should just be one question if it's working correctly. But I'll just give you a couple minutes to go ahead and scan that and fill that out for us. It does help us kind of structure things. We like to plan everything out for the year so everyone knows when the meetings are and also some of the topics. And then today is really grant updates. We have a lot of grants that are going on, a lot of new grants and also ones that we're wrapping up. And so I am going to kind of go through each one of them, but please feel free to drop in the chat or come off mute and interrupt me at any time. I live in these grants, so they get kind of mundane almost for me, but please let me know if you have any questions. All right. If we didn't get the QR code scanned, I can always come back to it later. But I'm gonna keep us moving. Okay, so the first grant is C-STARS. So you've heard us talk about this collaborative science to assess restoration success grant for a while. It's been going on since 2023. We finished 2024 data collection and all of that has been QA/QC'd and delivered to Grid C, which is a requirement for the grant. 2025 data is almost completed. Liz is going to be out in the field with St. Andrew Baywatch next week, and then in a couple more weeks, Choctawhatchee, and then all of 2025 will be collected. We're hoping to get all of that QA/QC'd by the end of December, and then it likely won't get delivered to Grid C until the beginning part of 2026. We did receive our extension for data collection in 2026, and so we will be able to extend this into a third year. So that's exciting. We'll have 3 complete years of data and give us some more time to finish out some of the analysis that we just haven't been able to quite get to quite yet. Any questions on this one? This is an example of one of the kind of homeowner reports is what we call them, but this one is actually for one of the public sites, just as an example. So we give this to the homeowners that have living shorelines. Each quarter they get updated and then an annual roll roll up gets given to them as well. And they really like these reports. They like to see what we're doing and the results of what we're doing. So we're hoping to also kind of highlight this for new future shoreline installations for residents that might be interested. All right, UWF, this was a grant that we were provided. It's a legislative request from a couple of years ago. It went to the University of West Florida and was really focused on water quality. We went ahead and devoted the funding that we received to understanding the sediment contamination in St. Joe Bay, or no, this one, sorry. This one is sediment contamination as well as myofauna. And so this one, we have the sampling completed, we have the myofauna information delivered, and then we're just waiting on the sediment contaminants. It did some different contaminants than what we did with a previous contamination study. And they also dated some of the sediment at some of the cores. Some of the cores that we took, they've actually gotten some preliminary dating data back, and it suggests that they have a 50 to 100-year-old history in just the cores that you see in the images. So we should be able to kind of piece together, about 100-year history and some locations of pollution in the bay, or lack thereof, hopefully. So really interesting results so far, but we're still waiting for the complete data package to get sent to us, and then we'll be running some analyses on this. This one needs to be wrapped up shortly. Questions on this one? FDAC. So this one is the Strategically Reforesting Bay County. So we did a curve number analysis combined with the number of outfalls in each location and prioritized public areas for reforestation efforts. And so this is actually live on our website. There's a link here that you can go to, and I'll send this all out. And you can also find it under planning, which is one of our programs on our website. But this is completed, delivered, and accepted by FDACS. And so this one's kind of wrapped up, but it will be a living product. Not all of the cities gave us direct feedback on the priority rankings that were submitted. And so that feedback really was critical for some of the cities, and we actually completely changed the analysis rankings based on some of their feedback. And so we're hoping to be able to get some feedback from them as we go, but we can refine this. Rose has done a great job putting this story map together, and it kind of just goes through why stormwater matters, what happened with Hurricane Michael, and then how we can focus reforestation efforts in public areas. Springfield, this is a restoration type project. This was actually just getting preliminary design, so up to 60% design. It's really our first project that was really getting close to that implementation side. And so we're excited to say that the 60% design is completed and has been accepted by the city of Springfield. The commission voted at the end of September to continue to move the project forward as funding becomes available. The city doesn't have funding to finalize it, and we're continuing to seek for that funding. But at least they're happy with the direction that the designs went. This project also resulted in some conversations that amounted to the acquisition of, I think it's about 10 acres that can be used for some more floodplain connection. So it kind of was sitting there in purgatory a little bit, and then some of the conversations with stream alignment really helped the city to move towards finalizing those conversations. And so that is moving forward, which is great news. I think it's going to be voted on at their next meeting. All right. This one is a little bit newish. Marine debris. It started, actually, it's been a year. I can't believe it. It's been a year. So We do have the installations of these litter traps, which are in this lower left-hand corner. This is what is in different locations across 4 different cities. And so we are monitoring those monthly. Some of our monitoring is in coordination with the cities, and then Panama City is really the only one that's really understaffed right now that we go out on our own and monitor. So far, we've collected, and I think this is a recent screenshot from Rose, so 166 pounds of trash, and just, I think it started in August, monitoring. So they're collecting a lot. It's a lot of organic debris, sometimes some construction sediment as well, but there is trash in them. So it is working. We haven't had that much rain these last few months. And so not that much captured in them the last few months, but still getting stuff. Definitely understanding some of the dynamics of the locations. And then Rose has put together this dashboard. It is not live yet because no one needs to approve it, and it hasn't yet been submitted to them because they're shut down. So we're waiting for the shutdown to happen and some, finalized tweaking on the webpage that this is going to live on. But this is alive. So we have a survey 1, 2, 3. So we were just out there today monitoring, and Rose puts in the information. And then we do the deep dive, and then she's able to enter that information, and this automatically populates. And so the cities can go onto the dashboard and get the data that they need. We do also provide them a spreadsheet of the data for ease of reporting. And so far, it's been going really well. This grant does support the installation of murals for some educational aspects. Those are put on hold because recent state legislation has required the removal of any art from roadways, and some of that has extended into sidewalks in some areas, and we're just kind of waiting for things to calm down a little bit and then really try to understand if we can put them on sidewalks, or if they have to be completely off of the sidewalks or roadways in adjacent areas. And then we'll kind of reconfigure what those murals are going to look like. So it could be where we put them on buildings or in parking lots or something else that's still effective and helps to raise the awareness, but not necessarily as originally intended. So questions on this one? All right, keep on going. So National Coastal Condition Assessment, we were funded to do an intensification. So this grant, normally the National Coastal Condition Assessment only samples 5 stations between St. Andrew and St. Joe Bay. And so we were able to intensify it and have 10 additional stations. So we did 5 extra in St. Andrew and 5 extra in St. Joe. We've sampled, all the sampling is completed, and all of the samples have been submitted to the labs for analysis. We have some of the information back, but not all of the information. And so we're just waiting on those lab results. In the meantime, we're exploring different analyses that have been done with this data, and then also kind of the questions that we want to answer with this data and the different data layers that we need to overlay and be able to analyze to provide some level of condition beyond what the NCCA will provide, and in a little bit more of a timely manner. All right, so scaling up nature-based solutions, or SUN. So this is a TNC-led project that we're just a part of, and this is sort of 2.0. So there was a previous SUN's effort. And then this is 2.0. I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the work that's been going forward. So this is really trying to identify nature-based solutions across, well, the TNC is interested in Bay, Gulf, and Franklin. We're just focused on the Bay and Gulf side of things. So we meet with different partners in those areas and try to get some projects identified and then moving them towards implementation. So these are just two examples of the Lynnhaven Bayou Park and Preserve in this picture with the shoreline erosion. And then all the way across the slide is Lynnhaven Refuse Pond. Both of these sites were identified as potential areas for living shorelines. The city is on board with things, but it's just trying to get them funded has been difficult. And so TNC has put forth some of the funding to provide some preliminary design. And so here are just some results from some of those design efforts. Right now we're talking with the city, trying to get their feedback on what their vision is, and then moving those a little bit more forward, hoping to be able to get some permits actually applied for, at least for the Lynnhaven Bayou Park and Preserve location. And so I highlight this project because it's really been influential to kind of the way that we've been working in the program to try to get those projects identified. And it's led to additional grants that we've secured, which I'll get into later. Katie, did you want to add anything to this one since you're here?
No, that was a great job. Thanks, Jessica.
Yeah. Right. No. Okay, so on to our new grants. EPA Bay Guardians grant. So we proposed to EPA a while back for their water quality monitoring program, and it's the Gulf program out of EPA. And so this is going to support additional years of water quality monitoring with St. Andrew Bay Watch and St. Andrew Bay. It will also add a few stations to some of the upper portions of the bayous that don't necessarily get monitored currently, to try to understand if the monitoring station is capturing some of the potential impairments. And then it will establish a citizen science water quality monitoring program in St. Joe Bay. It's just going to highlight probably about 5 more stations there. There is existing stations that we are going to, of course, avoid, but then hopefully add in some gap areas to get a better idea of some of the water quality in that area, and also just engage the community a little bit. And then it will allow us to be able to do an analysis, particularly in St. Andrew Bay, to kind of understand what are the stations that we need to be monitoring when funding is a little lower. So water quality monitoring programs go through a lot of funding fluctuations. And so just trying to understand the base condition throughout those fluctuations will be really important into the future. So this analysis will allow us to be able to identify which of those stations needs to be monitored during different levels of funding. And we anticipate having at least 3 levels of high, medium, low funding, and being able to figure out where to go for those. So this is active now, but we can't do anything until we have our quality assurance project plan approved by EPA. That was submitted prior to the shutdown, but I assume no one is looking at it at this point in time, which is going to cause some additional delays, but we're hoping to have an approved clock by the end of December so that we can start 2026 monitoring. Spark. So this is one of the, it's like SUNS 3.0. So Spark, supportive partnerships advancing resilience and knowledge. And so trying to, again, get those projects identified and get them shovel ready for a higher likelihood of securing funding. And so this is building from TNC SUNS work and then Resilient Florida, which is the next grant that I'll talk about. And This project also allows us to expand beyond just nature-based solutions. A lot of what we've heard over the past couple of years working with Suns is that they have a lot of projects, but they're not nature-based. So we want to make sure we're capturing those, and understanding maybe opportunities to combine the gray with the green infrastructure and have a little bit more flexibility. It will also support a grant writer to help local governments write these projects up for grants. We have found that that's one of the limitations with these projects is that, you know, they'll be all for the project, but they don't have the staff time to devote to the nature-based side of things or the expertise to be able to write it in. And so this will support someone to be able to work with us, but then also have that grant expertise to work with, the funders and then also the cities or local governments to write them into proposals that we hope will be successful. And then also support additional engineering. So just like Suns does, moving projects towards that implementation. So there is engineering funding available in there to be able to move some selected projects for further development. So this one is at FSU. It's just not fully activated yet. We're just waiting on some signatures, I think. So should be active in the next week or so. And then I'm going to actually skip to Resilient Florida. So Resilient Florida, it really does build also, so identifying those projects, but also hosting grant workshops for local government. So again, trying to get that capacity, getting the grant information out to the local municipalities. Currently, I have a very informal relationship with a contractor for the local mitigation strategy group out of Bay County. And I provide them with any of the grant announcements that I may see. And then they provide it out to folks. There's a few great grant contractor folks out there in the cities that really eat up any opportunity possible, but there's a lot of language and details, especially when you're talking about Resilient Florida grants, that get to be a little bit overwhelming for anyone, whether you're seasoned grant writer or not. And so this is really to try to get some folks in the room that are the ones giving out the money to really hone in on how to develop these projects to get a higher likelihood of funding. It's also going to support the creation of a flood reporting system. So one of the things that we've heard from Resilient Florida over and over again is we need documentation of flooding. And so at first it was, you just need a vulnerability assessment and to show that you're vulnerable to flooding. Now that's not necessarily enough, and they want to see actual flooding documentation, which means pictures. So this reporting system is going to allow citizens to be able to take a picture, submit it into this reporting system, has a GPS already provided, and give us some information on where this flooding is occurring and when it's occurring. And we'll be able to give that information to each of the municipalities, but then also use that for different project development, project identification, and then also hopefully the documentation that's asked for when submitting these for grant proposals. It's also going to allow us to expand into our outlying counties. And so we've really been focused into Bay and Gulf, but we really haven't engaged a whole lot in Walton, Washington, Jackson, and Calhoun. Some of those are difficult because there's not a huge municipality in those areas. And then some of them are just needing to find the time. And so this will provide that kind of operational time for us to be able to get into those other areas and start having those conversations. All right. And then the last one, microbial and nutrient source tracking. So this project was actually identified years ago with the county of trying to identify different types of impairment. So testing water samples for DNA in bacteria and then stable isotopes for nutrient sources. The county puts a lot of effort into septic sewer transitions. There's a lot of folks that don't necessarily see that the septic is the issue. And so this will be able to help us not just have that information, but also to identify areas that need to be the next effort for septic to sewer transition, if it is human DNA that's found in the bacteria, or possibly work with, the different cattle operations or different types of sources to be able to identify the impact and have actions. We'll combine these results with land use, of course, and then other areas. So if it's septic to sewer area, having a vulnerability associated with that can also help to, I think, sell the story to the funding entities. So our first focus is going to be sampling in impaired water bodies. Those are the listed by DEP impaired water bodies, and we'll test for the type of listing that it is. Each of those samples depends on the concentration, and so this sampling will likely not happen until probably next summer, just when concentrations are higher, so that we can get reliable results. And then if we have leftover funding, we're hoping to be able to expand beyond the listed impaired water bodies. I think a lot of you probably are familiar with the listing process and how Northwest Florida doesn't always represent the truly impaired water bodies on the list. And so we just want to make sure that we're being able to focus on everything. And so we've already had a lot of requests for areas to sample. So it's going to be very important for us to identify a strategic process for identifying where else to sample than just the impaired water bodies. But this just got activated. And so we're still working on the planning side of things. I think that was it. Are there any questions about any of these grants?
Hi, this is Bill Fisher, and thanks for the overview. It's first time for me to hear about a lot of these projects. I was wondering about the microbial and water quality project. Is there a map of septic systems? How many people in, say, Bay County are on their own septic systems versus sewerage?
We do have a data layer that identifies likely septic. And so there is some that we know are septic and that are mapped on there. And then they do expand beyond that and have likely septic to expand the impact. We then need to put that in with soils, because sometimes the soils really have an impact on how effective your septic and your drainage field is. And so there's a couple different layers that need to be combined, but there is some of that information out there. How accurate that likely septic layer is a different story, but we do have that information.
And certainly we should be able to get from the county the sewer system, the sewerage, which houses are linked to the sewers, and you can presume that everything else isn't.
Right. In theory, okay. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? All right. So partner update. So feel free for anyone online to come off mute or type in the chat any updates that you'd like us to know. Norm, I know that you had something that you wanted to mention, which I can stop sharing if you want to share your screen, and we'll start with you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So let's see if I can actually get this to work. And this is, oh, sharing's not turned on. Okay.
Here, I'm making you a co-host, so then hopefully you can share.
Okay. Let's see. Share. And multiple participants. Okay, let's see if I can get it to work now.
Okay. If not, I can always share it.
Okay. I think we're getting.
I see it.
Okay. This is not what you want to see. Hold on. Sorry. Moving my windows around. I'm not as agile with this as some people. I may not ever make it to the full screen mode here. Let me try. There we go. And get into presentation, and then we'll have a bunch of dirty pelicans. Okay, so this idea is something that's been batted around with Bay County Audubon for the past few years. And we've had some requests from the shorebird groups to go out to this Audubon or Bird Island or Pelican Island and to put nesting materials there. And it's kind of been on and off again. And basically, the way the write-up is, and those folks who have been in Audubon for 20 years or more appreciate that there's been a long history of involvement with this little spoil island, and it's next to the port. I've never seen it. I'll go ahead and jump ahead and say that Mark Hyman and I are making plans to take a trip to see whether or not we can even approach the island. There are a lot of problems, and I've heard of a lot of different stories, and I don't know as much about it as people like Neil Lamb and Ron Hauser and others who've been active in this. But for a long time, it was the only nesting place for brown pelicans in Bay County. And it was important for the entire Western Panhandle. I don't know whether it's obviously not true at this point in time, but it is a place that they seem to, migrate is not the right term, but where they collect. And there have been other species such as laughing gulls, which we probably don't need more of, great blue herons and other species. And the write-ups as over the years, and this was pre-Michael, storms have washed away much of the vegetation on the island. And the island is just basically built with riprap and probably wastes, concrete materials and all. And I'm not even sure what's left yet. But there's been a legal document that gives Bay County Audubon some authority to work on this island. And there's been interest among a number of people, including folks from FWC. And at the very beginning of this, so I don't really have a lot of information. I do know that there is more in terms of the documents that legal documents that need to be looked at. And we really need to look at the island to see whether or not it's something that we can do something meaningful with to restore breeding quality territory for animals. So Mark and I are going to plan to visit next week and assess even the feasibility of trying to do anything. But there is a potential source of initial funding, and it's pretty small compared to the grants that you showed, but it might perhaps allow a real feasibility study, or at least something to begin, and maybe some remediation that would get some birds out there. And the grant program that National Audubon has outlined, they have what are called Audubon in Action grants that fit the National Audubon Flight Plan. I'll just say a couple of sentences about that in a few minutes. But we can get from $5,000 to $15,000, and they do. The caveat is that there won't be as many level 2 grants available this year. So I'm not sure what we can do with $10,000, and I'm not sure what kind of shape the island's in. But what I hope is that we will find that something that we can do and that we can leverage perhaps and build relationships with other organizations, at least speaking from the Audubon side, to get involved with the estuary program in something that protects birds. And I think if we can show a track record of doing this, this is almost a mitigation strategy for breeding birds and provides additional foraging area if it's successful. And right now, I have to say that I'm talking to you about probably 6 months ahead of time. But I wanted to bounce the idea off because other people may have ideas about additional sources of fundings or ways that we can become shared stakeholders. I clearly have to get in touch with the individuals or their successors from FWC and probably work with other organizations as well. And probably contact Patty Kelly and some other people with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and see whether or not we can put together some ideas. But first, we've got to make this visit. So I just wanted to put this idea out there, perhaps for comments, ideas. We don't have to go any further on that today, but I wanted to get some folks that might be able to have some input to get together with us and talk about it. And if I can put together a grant before November 23rd, something that makes sense, then I'll do my best to do that. So that's it.
Norm, I have a couple questions. So
Sure.
the island, I've gone by a number of times. I know you said you don't really know yet, but is the anticipation that it's like you're gonna have to reinforce the barrier? Or is this just sort of like figuring out a vegetation remediation strategy?
At this point, I really don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I do know that everyone I've spoken with either say that it's very difficult to get here, that people are not encouraged to go there, and it is kind of smelly. And whether or not we have to wear masks to even approach the island, I don't know, but I should know after next week. And Mark,
Upwind.
excuse me?
Just go upwind.
Right, exactly.
Upwind.
And so it could be something that it could be Capra's folly for you, for all I know at this point, but something I wanted to get out there and to see, because we have had several campaigns with the shorebird folks over the years to try and get together and get materials, put nesting material out there. And it really hasn't happened, but I think we've got some people now that might be willing to help with that. And there is some interest in the chapter. I don't know how much interest there is to work at this point, but it does take a lot, I'm sure, a lot of work. But we may be able to even, if necessary, get other materials put out there to reinforce the island, that one man's junk is another man's treasure sort of thing. And I don't know. This is a completely new venture for me, based on historic interest and some current local interest in the chapter.
Okay.
Okay, see if we can stop share here. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else have any thoughts or questions? Anyone else have any updates?
Actually, I have a question about the Resilient Florida.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about it, but I do know that over here on our end, you say you haven't ventured far out into Bay County, and actually this is Bay Walton line. There are a lot of people in the Jamaica Lake subdivision that have undergone flooding for years, and there's incredible amounts of development coming out around this area, including 2 planned new hotels. And they're very up in arms about stopping the flooding they have already, much less what might happen if these buildings aren't built right. Well, my concern comes in from a different direction. My concern comes in from the fact that I know from the permit, at least, that the new apartment complex, 300-unit apartment complex that just opened, the water from that ultimately winds up in Lake Powell, which is an outstanding Florida water, and subject to increased water quality, even with what's dumped into that. And as a citizen, not as a scientist on this, because I'm not a hydrologist by any means, but I'm concerned that if they continue to approve and approve and approve building both in Bay and Walton County, that all lands into Lake Powell, even though each each entity that builds plans to do the right thing in terms of putting higher quality water there to maintain the status of outstanding Florida water, that they're going to reach a threshold at some point. And I would hate to see Lake Powell lose its designation. I think it would also impact the property values for the people who live there, but that's not my primary interest. It's primarily conservation.
Right. Yeah, I was at a recent commission meeting and heard a citizen come in and talk about Jamaican Lakes and the responses that she received from the county. So I've jotted it down. It was a conversation with the Suns team about like going to the commission meetings to identify some of the projects. So I'm aware of the flooding issue. I haven't looked further into it.
Would that fit into the resilient Florida
I think so. I
program?
think it
That's my main
depends on-
question, I guess.
Yeah, I
And,
think so. Generally, it's a flooding, like they target flooding stuff. It's generally for critical assets, not people's homes. So if it was flooding like an evacuation route, it's going to get ranked higher than if it's flooding a residence. That doesn't mean it's not possible, but those types of projects are kind of what Resilient Florida is looking for. And then for us, it was more a conversation about what are the opportunities because of the development? Is there anywhere to go with the water that would be on the nature-based solution side of things? And I haven't looked enough into it to understand. And then, the development side, it's a really tough nut to crack because Florida is a right to develop state. And so it really makes it where the, local officials have a hard time saying no. And so it really is up to them to put in these ordinances, these land development codes that make it a little bit more difficult, but safer for those types of areas. And so it is, they always say that you can provide them examples of where, if there's examples from other outstanding Florida waters where commissions have been able to limit development in unique ways, they love to see those examples because it helps them to know even how to approach it. And so that's my immediate advice, but I will definitely look further into it.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Anyone else have any updates, questions?
I can say a quick update, Jessica.
Yeah.
Hey y'all, Katie Conchar here with the Nature Conservancy. I think it was this group I talked to a few months ago at the beginning of the field season. The Nature Conservancy partnered with University of Florida Center for Coastal Solutions to try to halt some seagrass erosion ongoing on the south side of Tyndall Air Force Base in St. Andrew Sound. I just wanted to provide a quick update. The project really centered around the installation of some bamboo stakes to try to deter herbivores and reduce erosion within the seagrass bed. It has been working really well. The team just got back from our fall field assessment. However, there's also been quite a bit of ongoing erosion. And so I can drop a recent newsletter update in the chat, Jessica, if that's okay. For folks who are interested, this particular newsletter is published by the University of Florida and has some good pictures in it. One of which you can see really well. See if I can figure out how to share here. Where we've placed bamboo is in many cases the only remaining seagrass there at this point. And so can you all see that picture? Okay, great. So yeah, I just wanted to give a little update. It's a 1/4 linear mile, about 5 acres of habitat we're looking to protect there. And the project is being adapted as we speak to try to protect what remains. So if anybody has questions or if you're out to that side of the beach and see the bamboo, at least you know what's going on. So thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Katie. Any questions?
No, but I have a quick update. Sorry for my tardiness.
No worries.
We're getting our Negosi project underway, and so I've been back and forth down there getting stuff ready to go.
Yeah.
But we also we put in for a NIFWIF NCRF grant to move our restoration project from Deer Lake over to Grayton Beach. We didn't get chosen for a full proposal, and so we pivoted very quickly and started budget slashing to get a proposal into REPI, which is the money that we got for this Negosi project. And we felt it gave us a pretty good chance to be competitive and get that project at least going, and so we could figure out the funding in the future later, past 10 years. So we put in for that July 3rd, and we'll see how the government shutdown pans out, but we should hear next month whether or not we were able to get that. But I think we're in a good position because we already have an agreement with the Air Force for the work at Negosi, so it would just go right on to that. So we're just waiting to see if we can get that rolling. But we got everything's in place. We got all the agreements from the state park to move to do the project, for AVG to oversee the entirety of it, and they've agreed to let us use all the equipment that we bought on the last project, which is state equipment, through an MOU. And so we're positioned and ready. We're just waiting to hear if we can get some money. So
Yeah. Okay, cool. Hopefully, I mean, I'm assuming that you got encouraged because isn't there a couple phases of development for REPI?
There can be sort of like NCRF, but we, and that's what I think that I'm not sure what the challenge was and why we couldn't get NIFWIF to bite on it, but
Yeah.
because there's no phases, we're ready to go. It's implementation. We already have the project in place. We got all the documentation. Everything's ready to go. We just need the money to get rolling. So it's not as stringent, I think, on the REPI side as far as phases go. So hopefully they see the benefit. I think that they do. They've been asking a lot of questions of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there were someone else that applied for a REPI challenge and has already been told no. So sounds like if you guys haven't been told no yet, then
No, we definitely haven't been told no. And I've been talking with our rep I was prior to October 1, but I was talking with our rep at the Air Force REPI office in San Antonio, and he had called and had some questions about that project. So, like I said, I feel pretty confident that I think we can get it kicked off here. So
great. Fingers crossed. I submitted to NCRF like 3 different proposals and I didn't get asked for a full proposal either. So they were just being a little, I'm hoping what they did was they stopped asking so many people for full proposals when they knew they were only going to fund like a couple of them. Because that's what I felt like NCRF did that a lot in the past few cycles, was that they asked for a lot of full proposals, but only funded a handful of them when they kind of already knew that they weren't going to fund some of them. So who knows? But we also got a lot of no's.
yeah, that's all right. Just keep pressing.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else have any updates that they'd like to announce? Okay, well, our next meeting is scheduled to be December 18th at 1 o'clock. I'll be sending the agenda out. Ryan will not be back until next year, but she's doing well and happy baby girl. So we wish her well and we miss her, but I'll be holding down the fort for the SPC until next year. So you'll get another agenda from me. The December 18th meeting, we've reached out to a lot of folks already. It'll be a lot of partner updates, a little bit more than just the quick update. So if you've been approached and have agreed, I appreciate it. If you haven't been approached and would like to give a little bit more of a robust update, let me know. But thank you so much for joining. Appreciate it and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Jessica. Bye all.
Thank you, Jessica.